Check out beacons.ai/comicsfunprofit for all the C4 FAP links you could ever need, all in one place. You can provide feedback, listen, support, share, enjoy these. We have our Patreon there. You can buy us a beer or a coffee. You can check out our Instagrams, our Twitters, our Facebooks. Check out our YouTube page. You can email us. You can listen to our podcasts on Patreon, if you're a subscriber, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on Podbean. We have Google Podcasts on there. We have an Amazon wish list. You want to buy Kyle and I something? Fine. You can do that here. We appreciate it. We have Kyle's RPG podcast listed on there, so you can check out his Dork Day Afternoon offerings. We have Cowabunga links, so you can check out the Cowabunga Deep Discount FOC and pre-order list. Get on that. That's RLCS, so you can check that out as well. And we want to just give you opportunities to say hi, to check out what we're doing, support us if you would like, or just listen. Check out beacons.ai/comicsfunprofit for all the C4 FAP links you could ever need. Thanks. Back to the show.
Aloha! It's Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. In this episode, I will be interviewing comedy writer, podcaster, two-time Eisner nominee, and 21st Century American Ninja, Jordan Morris. Jordan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks, Jason. Great intro. One of the best I've ever received.
Now, we talked before. I'm going to mention, you mentioned American Ninja on a past podcast interview, the Comics Book Counseling Couples podcast. Can you just briefly talk about why you mentioned American Ninja at the end?
Yeah, on the Great Comic Book Couples Counseling podcast, one of my faves, we just randomly started talking about 90s action movies, I believe. Mm-hmm. And yeah, one of my just kind of random polls was American Ninja. I haven't rewatched these movies. We rented them as a kid. I kind of vaguely remember a time when it was just like I was renting all martial arts movies.
Yeah.
And yeah, the American Ninja movies are this kind of weird little forgotten franchise. There was probably 5 or 6 of them, but kind of lost to time.
Yes, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of going off the cuff, but it would be nice to see if they just bring it back, but make it still have that little bit of that campiness to it, not to make it too gritty and dark and violent, but just to revive it, just to see what they can do nowadays.
That would be fun. I know. Yeah, I love a kind of a cheapy martial arts movie. That's such a fun genre.
Oh yeah. All right. Now, listeners, Jordan is here to promote his second graphic novel, Youth Group, from FirstSecond Books. Now when this interview will be released, the book will already be out in stores already. Now, before we jump into the interview, I'm just going to give my shout outs, a little bit background on Jordan's work history and some research information. So please bear with me. So I want to give a big shout out to Hannah Bahedri of Superfan Promotions. Hannah, thank you very much, for asking us, the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast, to interview Jordan. And thank you very much for sending me the advanced reading copy. So Hannah, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes. Thank you very much. Jordan, I'm going to ask, would you like to add anything to that?
No, Hannah and the gang at Superfan PR have been so great, setting us up with cool chats like this one and others. And yeah, also thanks to, hold on one second. Let me make sure I shout out the FirstSecond promo folks too.
Oh, yes.
And yeah, I also want to shout out Morgan Rath over there at FirstSecond, who's doing some great promo work for the book too. Yeah, there's so much media these days that stuff can kind of get buried, and it's hard to get the word out about something that you're really passionate about. I love Youth Group. I'm so happy with how it turned out. So yeah, getting to do stuff like this and interviews and panels, it's so important. So yeah, thank you to everybody who set this up, and thank you to you for talking to me.
Oh no, but thank you very much. So listeners, I'm just going to give a little bit of background about Jordan. And Jordan, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, because I got this from the press release and from your website too. So, Jordan is a comedy writer who has worked in TV features, digital comedy, and video games. He has created and co-wrote the two-time Eisner-nominated graphic novel Bubble, based on the hit um, Maximum Fun podcast that he also created. I'm going to ask you, can you just, for the listeners, just explain what is Bubble about?
Yeah, so Bubble is a sci-fi comedy. It's about a bunch of hipsters who live in a domed city and kind of a nightmare near future where everybody is shackled to this kind of life or death version of the gig economy. They use this kind of Uber-like app to kill monsters and mutants, and they stumble upon this government conspiracy. And yeah, it's fun. It's satirical. It's for grown-ups. A lot of
Hmm.
sex jokes, a lot of gore. Yeah, and that project started out as a scripted podcast over there on the Maximum Fun Network. So yeah,
Nice.
it's a scripted podcast created by me, but written and produced by a lot of great creative, talented people.
Hmm.
And yeah, and we did an adaptation of it for First Second. We did a graphic novel adaptation. So I did that with a great writer named Sarah Morgan, who
Hmm.
also worked on the podcast, and an amazing artist named Tony Cliff,
Hmm.
who does the Delilah Dirk series and a bunch of other cool comics and picture books. And yeah, so the three of us did the adaptation, and I'm really proud with both versions. I think the podcast is a ton of fun, and I think the graphic novel is gorgeous. So yeah, if you pick up Youth Group and want more of that, and if you're a grown up, check out
Yes.
Bubble. Bubble is a more adult product than
Okay.
Youth Group, which is a YA book. So yeah.
Yes. Hmm. And also, Jordan, I also want to mention that you've also written some stories um, for the Chilling Advent of for written some stories of Chilling Adventures from Archie Comics. Is that correct? Hopefully,
That's
I
right.
got that right.
Yeah. So Archie Comics, they have the Chilling Adventures line. That's their kind of horror stories
Mhm.
featuring, the Riverdale gang. And yeah, I love that line of comics. It's so much fun, and they're shocking, they're gory,
Mhm.
they're over the top. And yeah, a great writer and editor, Jamie Rotante, brought me into the Archie family and allowed me to pitch some stories, which actually made it into some of the books. So yeah, I've done I think 3 stories with them for their various anthologies, and I love how they turned out. It's so much fun to kill the Archie characters. It's just a blast.
Nice. I have to check out those
Definitely,
comics.
yeah. That whole line is so much fun.
Mhm.
I'd never miss an issue.
Um, Also too, you he's also the co-host of 2 podcasts. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Jordan, Jess, Go, and your co-host on that podcast is with Jess Thorne. I listened to one of your recent episodes. You were interviewing, I can't remember the comedian's name. I know you guys were talking about um you're like in some type of a swimming group. You guys were talking about swimming pools. She's a roller skater. Well, not, she kind of roller skates. I can't remember the comedian's name. I should
Yeah,
have
I
wrote
think
it
that's
down.
Kim Clark, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, Kim Clark, very funny comic. So yeah, you're talking about Jordan Jesse Go over there on Maximum Fun. That is
Hmm.
a chat podcast that we've just been doing forever. It's just a premiseless podcast where me and my buddy Jesse sit down with comics and writers and folks we like, and we just kind of shoot the poop. It's
Yeah,
very, very free form and a ton of fun. I love doing that show.
it's great. It's because it's great. It's really fun. And what's nice is it's you guys are just talking story. It's not a question answer question answer question answer. It's you guys are just getting into it, and it's just and that's what I love about it. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I know there's a lot of places where you can hear creative people get interviewed,
Hmm.
like this podcast, for
Yes. Yeah.
instance. But yeah, I think when we started that show, we just wanted it to be a little looser and a little
Hmm.
more hangouty. Yeah, I love a good interview podcast for sure, and definitely
Yes.
try and talk to folks about stuff they're excited about and stuff they're passionate about. But yeah, I think we like that show just being a little more of a loose hangout.
Yeah. And it's really cool podcast. If you guys get a chance, check it out. And also, too, you also do another podcast, Free with Ads, with Emily Fleming. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, free with ads. Also over there on MaximumFun.org. Emily Fleming is a great comic and writer and actor, and we're buddies. We've worked together on a few different projects, and we love goofing on weird movies. So we started Free with Ads, where we watch a movie we find on a free streaming service. So like the free stuff on YouTube or Pluto or
Mhm.
Tubi, some of those places. And yeah, we watch a movie every week and we just kind of goof on it. And our producer Matt Lieb also is a great comic and
Mhm.
a fun comic actor, and he joins us too and is also hilarious. So yeah, if any of that sounds fun, if you're looking for a new pod, Free with Ads and Jordan Jesse Go, they are out there.
I have to check that out because that one sounds like it's a lot of fun. It
It's a
is.
blast. Yeah.
And there's a ton of movies, man. And I'm sorry, we're going off the cuff, but it's like on Amazon Prime, I'm scrolling through, I'm like, what is this movie called? What is this? I've never heard of it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, maybe for that show we'll watch one of the American Ninja Warrior movies
Oh
someday,
yeah.
or the American Ninja. I guess
Well,
American Ninja Warrior is the game show.
yeah.
American Ninja was the cheap martial arts movie.
Yes.
So yeah, so we watch movies. We've watched Van Damme movies and
Oh yes. Mhm.
weird Jaws ripoffs with alligators. It's a ton of
Yes.
fun.
All right. And then now when this interview is aired, you would have already been guests on the Doughboys podcast. Now that podcast talks about, correct me if I'm wrong, restaurant chains, and you've been on that podcast before, correct?
I have, yeah. So the Doughboys, Nick Weiger and Mike Mitchell, two of the funniest guys ever, I think.
Mhm.
I love them. So I started doing comedy with those dudes. We did improv together, and we've
Mhm.
been in a couple writing rooms together. So we're just friends. We
Mhm.
all are around the same age and started around the same time. And yeah, they've been doing that fast food podcast for a while now, almost 10
Mhm.
years, I think. And yeah, they're two hilarious dudes, and every week they review a chain restaurant
Mhm.
with a comic or an actor or a writer, and it's so much fun. They're hilarious. It's such a fun, weird topic that like everybody has an opinion on. Like I think
Yes.
no matter how big a foodie you are, you
Mhm.
have a favorite chain restaurant, you have a favorite fast food place,
Mhm.
and it's just fun to talk food. Everybody's got an opinion, and people get really passionate about it. So yeah, I've done their podcast a couple times, and I think the most recent episode we did together was on the restaurant that's in Nordstrom. Nordstrom,
Oh,
the department store.
yes.
A lot of them have restaurants in them, and
Yes.
so we reviewed that one. It was a ton of fun. Those guys are so funny.
Oh, okay. All right. So listeners, as I've already mentioned that, some of the research I've got information from, the friends of our podcast, Lisa and Brad Gullickson, the comics, the comic book couples counseling podcast. Now that was released sometime, and I forgot to write the date down. I'm sorry. It was back, I think, June of 2024, when they interviewed Jordan about youth group. If you guys get a chance, please check out that interview. That was a great interview.
Oh,
That was a
thank you.
very good
Yeah, Brad,
interview.
Brad and Lisa are awesome. I love them, and I'm a listener to that show. And yeah, they're just really great, terrific, insightful comics fans, and they get great guests.
Yes. All right. So let's start. Where can listeners follow you on social media?
Yeah, sure. I have a website,
Hmm.
jordanmorris.net, and on there you'll find, Twitter,
Hmm.
Instagram, all that stuff, and you'll find links to the books and the podcasts
Hmm.
and places where you can get youth group.
Okay. All right. Jordan, thank you very much. Now we're going to just jump into youth group. Now, listeners, I just want to give you guys just a little bit background information about me and a little bit about Jordan because this is some of the information I got from the other podcast interview. So I am not a very good Christian. So and and I know from the comic book couples counseling interview that you've had some experience, yeah, that you've attended a Christian church back in the 90s. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I was a youth group kid.
Hmm.
I went to an evangelical church, and
Hmm.
all the teens, when the adults were in, they called it big church. I'm making
Yes.
quotation marks here. When the adults were in big church, all the kids and the teens would go to the youth group. And it
Hmm.
was this like little area, kind of this multi-purpose room that was like underneath the church. And they tried to make it cool. They tried
Oh,
to
yes.
have cool rock
I,
music, and their youth pastor had tattoo sleeves and wearing flip-flops, and it was Southern California, it was the 90s, and I always thought that was such a fun, weird little world, and it's one that I never saw written about in a way that I thought was like honest or got what was funny about it.
yes.
So yeah, so I always kind of wanted to write about one of those weird little places. And yeah, and I've always loved horror and genre stuff, and I've
Hmm.
always loved putting comedy into genre. So yeah, the
Yes.
idea to do kind of a religious horror movie set in my teen youth group,
Hmm.
I thought was a lot of fun. So yeah, our book is set in the 90s, so there's a lot of specifics from the era, there's a lot of
Oh,
fashion
yes.
from the era.
Hmm.
And yeah, that was a really fun excuse to revisit all that stuff. So yeah, it was a blast.
So okay, so I'm gonna try to like come. I'm gonna try to, because you've already talked a little bit about what the story, where you came up with the story, um, and I'm gonna just ask one little, like and I know this is gonna sound a weird question because you already talked about it, but I think like who are your characters in the story and what is the story about in youth group? You know.
Sure, yeah. So our main character is Kay, and
Hmm.
she's a little spooky. She's a little goth. She's like
Hmm.
a theater tech kid, if you remember the theater tech kids in high school growing up. And her mom is kind of like not forcing her, but strongly suggesting that she go to the youth group, even though
Yes.
she doesn't believe it. It
Yeah.
is not her cup of tea. The mom would like her to go.
Yes.
And there's
Hmm.
always one of these kids in church growing
Yes.
up. I found there was a kid who was like kind of spooky. They were rolling their eyes at everything. They smelled like clove cigarettes. They left early. And I just thought it would be really funny to make this kind of kid the main character.
Hmm.
Yeah, I kind of liked the idea that someone who didn't buy into it had to go on the adventure. I thought that's, just kind of a funny way in. So Kay is our main character, and
Hmm.
she has to team up with Meg, who is a
Yes.
very peppy, true believer, kind
Yes.
of a cheerleader type, loves pop
Yes.
music, loves friendship bracelets. She's all in on
Hmm.
church and believes it all. And then Cortland, who's kind of a like stoner who got roped into it. He, doesn't
Yeah.
exactly
Yes.
live the
It's
life, but he likes the camaraderie and he likes the music,
yeah.
so he's kind of along for the ride. And yeah, that's kind of the core of goofballs that have to actually fight demons. They kind of
Hmm.
stumble on a demon plot to take over the world, and
Hmm.
they have to join up with like some other religions to fight the demons. So yeah, that's the start of the story.
Okay. I just want to say what I love. Actually, I want to talk about a little bit about Kay and her mom because um, I love the relationship between Kay and her mom. And like I said, I'm trying not to get, again, listeners, this is a very fun action adventure story. And like I said, there's a lot of layers to it that adds the the three-dimensional flavor to it. I love it because we see Kay, like, and I love when someone comes up to Kay, like I think in the first page where one of those church greeters, very enthusiastic, hi, how you doing? And I love it when Kay goes, excuse me, no, she didn't cough. She said, "May the Lord spare your family when He returns to smite the sinners with His holy saber of justice." And the mom's going, "Oh my God, let's go."
Yeah.
And I relate to that because
Yeah.
because when I started to go to a Christian church, I used to
Mhm.
be a greeter and be like, "Hey, how you doing?" And
Oh,
it's
neat.
always
Okay.
like, "Yes, yay," and it's yeah, and you do meet, you sometimes, and I just thought that it was a little funny that Kay does that, and for some reason I see a little bit of myself in Kay doing that too, because when someone gets a little too, it comes sometimes it comes off a little bit too much, and you don't know if it's really genuinely true or if it's and I kind of
Right. Are
throw
they
that.
putting it on? Yes. When people are
Yeah,
so peppy and so enthusiastic about
yeah,
stuff. And that's definitely a kind of person that you experience with church, especially if you're a
yeah,
new person. If you're a new
yes,
person, they will get in your face. They will be
yes.
so cheerful, 10 out of 10 enthusiasm. So yeah, I thought it would be really
It's
funny to just like make her have to face one of those goobers
it's
immediately because she
yeah.
already kind of doesn't want to be there. So the, frontal
Mhm.
cheer assault does not work.
So, but I want to make this clear to listeners too that you know um Jordan's book, um he's not he's respecting the religions that he has in this that he has in this story. He's also respecting the characters too. That's the thing I love about your book, is that the characters, like, I'm going to say is, I was waiting to hear Meg, like like you said, Meg is the cheerleader. She's the one that, she's the believer, but it's like it's a genuine faith, and it's not false, it's not fake. She's a real person to me. I thought that you wrote her as a very good three-dimensional person. Like, if you see her in her room, she's making these bracelets and everything, and it's great. And she still carries that that enthusiasm. And the thing I love about it was that I was expecting to hear one of the characters to start being like, and like you mentioned in one of the interviews, that you didn't want them to come off as two-dimensional characters that we've seen, like in The Simpsons, for example, like Ned Flanders, tidy hole neighbor. I was waiting for Meg to do the hallelujah, praise the Lord Jesus, but Meg doesn't do that. She doesn't come across that. And like I said, that these characters, you love these characters, you're treating them with respect, and they feel three-dimensional. That's the thing I love about it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we really tried for that, and yeah, I think we wanted you to like everybody. I don't think you have to agree with everyone in the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think there are a lot of different opinions in the book.
Oh, yes.
And I wanted it to be a story about people kind of like finding common ground.
Yes.
And like, obviously in the world there are some people who are so wrong you do not have to find common ground with them because they're very wrong. But I think that, like, a lot of times, especially religions, they will scrap about small differences and get hung up on little things and not concentrate on what they have in common. So I think I liked the idea that even though everybody's kind of coming from somewhere differently, they have to figure out what they have in common.
Yes. And that is one of the things I love about the story. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get a little bit more further into the interview. I'm gonna ask you, just for our listeners, may I ask, just why did you set the stories in the 90s?
So that was a note from Callista Brill, my editor over at FirstSecond. So when I pitched her the book, the story was set in modern times. People had cell phones, people had the internet and all that stuff. And I think she saw that I was drawing from a lot of personal stuff. She thought, I think she, recognized that, like, I was using a lot of personal details and stuff I grew up with, and she's totally right about that. And and I think she wanted to just kind of give me permission to lean into that and make it a personal story. So I think the 90s setting really helped me just use more of my life for the inspiration. So yeah, I think it is a pretty, like, personal book in many ways. And yeah, I think Callista's note to do it in the 90s was a big part of that.
Because the thing is, I love, and for listeners, who may be kind of going, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure about this book. I'm kind of a Christian, but I want to read a book that's, that, doesn't want to pick on certain things. But there's like you said about the youth. Sorry, I'm trying to tie this into the youth pastor who they convert contemporary songs in the 90s to Christian music, which was kind of interesting. And I'm going to say, listeners, yes, that did happen. It did. I remember.
Sorry to say it. It all happened. It still happens.
Yes, and because living La Vida Loca, and I'm going to say, I wouldn't doubt it, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure some church back in the 90s changed it to Living La Vida Jesus, and like, I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say, I remember back in the 90s, it was some little quartet group, like, I think they must have been like guys in their 30s or 40s, and they were trying to sell CDs where it was like secular music converted to Christian music, like the Beach Boys song, help me Rhonda, or something, I can't remember, but they would tweet like, help me Jesus, help me Jesus.
Right.
And like, oh, and as a Christian back then, I'd be like, oh God, that's a little cringeworthy.
Pretty cringy, yeah.
Yeah.
Then and now.
But you know what I also love too was that um I love that you also mentioned you drop little hints, not nods to some of the Christian bands too, like I mean Jars of Clay. That was
Yeah, there's
pretty
Jars of Clay.
cool. I
Thanks.
just thought that,
Yeah.
you
That
know,
was Jars of Clay was all over the place in the
yes.
90s. They were a Christian rock band who had like some secular hits, right? So
Hmm.
they were one of those bands that sang about Jesus, but sometimes like it wasn't explicitly in the song. So if you just
Yes.
heard it on the radio, it might just
It
seem
just,
like a,
yeah.
regular ass alternative rock song. So yeah, they were kind of a funny, weird little presence back then. So yeah, there's a moment where the characters are listening to Jars of Clay in the car, and yeah, and that might be yeah, and obviously like if you lived it, you'll recognize that. It might be a little too specific a reference for most people to get, but hopefully if you recognize that, you're kind of understanding who these characters are. They are people who listen to Jars of Clay in the car.
But the other, I'm going to jump around a little bit because the thing I love, I know you did some research, and feel free to jump in and say, yeah, this is the research I did for. I think like the Catholics, the Catholic group that comes in, and the Wiccan group, that's a part of the story. The thing I love about your research about these all the groups was, um, you you captured quote unquote like the spirit of what they are instead of getting to into much details about what they are. Like this is what we do and this is why we did it, and and it's enough to where people recognize it. It's nice to be a part of the story, but yet um um we don't need too much we're not overloaded with information, you know.
Yeah. I wanted. Yeah, I didn't want it to be too much exposition dump and
Yes.
explaining. I wanted there to be a little bit. I didn't want people to feel lost or like, they weren't given
Yes.
enough information. But I personally like genre stories that just kind of get on with it. Like,
Yes.
and I know some people love that really extensive
Hmm.
world building and seeing diagrams of
Hmm.
spaceships and
Yeah.
learning where all the
Hmm.
songs in the Hobbit village came from. That is just not my personal stuff. I kind of
Hmm.
like stuff where you get a little bit of information and then you get an adventure. So yeah,
Yes.
that's kind of what I tried to do here of like showing people the rules of the world and then just kind of having fun and meeting fun characters. So yeah, that's just kind of a personal thing for me. I like to limit the exposition.
Yeah, and like I said, that's the thing I love about this story is it was just like, just like from me from coming from a Christian point of view, the jars of clay, that was a nice reference because then I have the deeper meaning of okay, I know what that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just but also too, but it's part of the story and it moves on. And it's just great that it's just seeing all these little nuggets here and there. But again, the whole story is about an action adventure about people from different backgrounds, people's life experiences. They come together to fight a common, to to fight a common, problem.
Yeah.
That's the thing I love about it. The other thing I love about this story too is Kay's parents are divorced.
Hmm.
Um, and they're going through some emotional healing. Like the mom went to church. She went to church, because of from the divorce. Kay's dad, Tim, is trying healing crystals, and it was just kind of nice to just see that there's a little bit of like the family drama in the background, and just for them to and in real life, most people they'll try to find if they go through a traumatic experience, they'll try to find something to kind of help them through the situation. You know, I don't know if you want
Yeah.
to comment on that.
Sure, I can talk about that a little bit. Yeah, there is some family drama going on, as you mentioned. Kay's parents are divorced, and she's kind of dealing with that and dealing with feeling like she's kind of invisible to one of her parents.
Yes.
And yeah, so it's she's the main character, and I really
Yes.
I wanted most of the story to be her
Oh, yes.
story, and I think that like I I kind of wanted it to be a story about people who feel out of place. Like it's people who feel
Yes.
like they're figuring out where they belong. And I think that's a
Yes.
big part of being a teenager, right?
hmm
Is you just feel like you don't fit anywhere. You're like, "Oh my God,
hmm
where do I go and what do I do?"
Yes.
And I think that like making like giving Kay that kind of fractured family, I thought was an interesting way to show that like she doesn't even really feel comfortable at home. Like
hmm
home feels weird to her. Like, and it's not that her parents are like mean or they're not like,
No. Yeah. hmm
yeah, they're not like violent or anything like that, but she just feels like they don't, she feels like she doesn't belong there. So
hmm
yeah, I thought the like divorce was a way to kind of show a kid who is looking for home,
Yes.
So yeah, that was kind of the thinking behind
hmm
giving her that family stuff going on in the background. And it's not, and the story isn't about that. Like it's not about
Oh no.
coping with
Yeah.
divorce or anything, but it's a
Yeah.
part of her character, and I think it informs, some of the stuff she does.
Because the other thing, like, it's a fun, adventurous story about Meg and her coming of age story, trying to find her place in the world. But I love the little bit layers of, and I think it goes on for 3 or 4 pages. Correct me if I'm wrong. Where it's in the beginning where Meg is talking to her mom. The thing about her mom's going, I'm doing this because I'm going to church because of this and this and this and this. The thing that stuck out me for the scene was how natural the dialogue felt, the emotions that that Kay is feeling and her mom is feeling. It just felt real, and it was very beautiful. It was great.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's nice of you to say. Yeah, I wanted that like it's a genre story. It's a
Yes,
horror story. It's a
yes,
supernatural story. But I wanted the like human characters to be human characters.
yes,
Like
yeah.
I wanted the I didn't want this to feel like a spoof of horror where,
hmm
everybody is, spoofing what it's like to be a horror main character. I
hmm
wanted them to be real people who
yes,
are funny and are
hmm
weird, but also are, they exist in a version of the real world that just happens to have demons, but it also has all
yeah,
the stuff that we have. So yeah, that was kind of the thinking. I wanted them to be like, I wanted the comedy not to be like from haha aren't horror movies funny and haha
hmm
don't people talk weird in horror movies, but to show these kind of normal people who have very normal ass people problems, like
yes,
having to get involved in some supernatural stuff. So
hmm
yeah, I and yeah, so I think that was the thinking behind making their personal drama
hmm
like relatively mundane.
yes, and like I said, I just love it, and I'm going to keep repeating, but I just love that your characters are, especially Kay, Meg, and Cortland. I love it that their characters are three-dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we see them at church. They put on that front, but when they go home, um, Meg is still kind of like who she is. Cortland, he's, closed doors. He's, hey, I'm going to relax. I'm going to chill. I'm not going to bust out my Bible. I'm going to play
Yeah.
video games,
Sure. Yeah.
you know, but I love, but like I said, and the other thing I love about the dialogue through the whole story is it feels real. It feels natural.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, now speaking of the dialogue, because I noticed that was there, may I ask, can you explain, because some of the characters have like color-coded word balloons. Yeah, can you explain like a little bit of that? Like sometimes I see Meg's word balloon is like a purplish blue color. The demons, of course, it's obvious when they're red.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is all Bowen McGurty, the great artist on this project.
Yes.
I am so happy with Bowen's amazing work on
Oh,
this.
yes.
A total genius, and like everything Bowen added into the mix, I think is so great. And Bowen is really into color theory. There's an interview we did with a site called The Comics Beat,
Oh,
where
yes.
Bowen talks a little bit more about that and talks about some of their uh, ideas about color theory
Mm-hmm.
and why they
Yes.
put what colors where. So yeah, I'll they're a much smarter art talker than I am, so
Okay. Mhm.
I'll point people toward that
Yeah.
if they want to know more about the color stuff going on in the book. The Comics Beat, great website, and that was all Bowen. I didn't like put that into the script. I didn't put like these
Oh.
bubbles should be this color or this
Mhm.
dialogue. I did say something early on of like, let's see in the word bubbles when people are possessed. I think that's the only note that
Yeah.
I got. I wanted the demons to like
Hmm.
talk differently so you kind of knew who was possessed and who
Oh,
wasn't.
yes.
And
Hmm.
when they were talking in their demon voice and when they were talking in their human voice.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that was the only like direction I gave in that zone, and all the stuff where the text matches the emotion of the scene. That's all Bowen.
Oh,
This
okay.
is one of 10,000 fucking awesome choices Bowen made with this. It's such a genius.
Okay, since we're talking about this is a great segue for Bowen. How did you team up with her? Her, right? Correct? Her.
She, they
Yes.
are Bowen's pronouns, so
Okay.
either works
Okay.
as
Yeah.
far as I know.
Okay. So
Uh,
yeah.
Yeah, so Bowen was a suggestion of Callista Brill, the editor. So
Hmm.
we had been working on this project for a little bit. I had pitched it, I had written a little bit of it, and then
Hmm.
kind of I started writing, and then they started searching for the artist.
Hmm.
And yeah, Bowen was the first person they sent me. They sent me a little packet of their work, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is the person. If they want to do it, like, let's just stop the
Hmm.
search,
Yes.
please.
Hmm.
So yeah, I was very lucky. The first person they sent I thought was the right one, and I'm so lucky Bowen said yes.
Now, listeners, Bowen's art is great in this story. It has that nice animated vibe to it. Because when I saw the first page, I was like, oh my God, this is great. But I also love her, how she did she drew the mega church or even things to like even the recreation room, you know, um, and there's a couple and I have to say this, and hopefully I'm using the correct term, but I love that there are a couple acting scenes that were nice, quiet moments that felt real and natural in the book. It's when Kay, Meg, and Cortland are going to I think it's Pastor Doug's um his recreation room downstairs. They're
Mhm.
walking. And the whole setup is their whole plan or Meg's plan was to talk to Pastor Doug about, hey, we need to bring the other religious groups because we need help to fighting these demons, and I'm sure they have the same problems we do. There's a nice scene where they're walking down the stairs, and Pastor Doug is just tuning his guitar.
Mhm.
It's just beautiful. It was just great,
Oh,
you
thanks.
know.
Yeah, I don't remember if that detail was in the script or if that was just something Bowen had him doing. Because yeah, the pastor of the church, Pastor Doug,
Yes.
he's like the pastor of the church overall. He doesn't talk to the teens, but he like kind of secretly leads the demon fighters. So
Yes.
he's the pastor of the church, and he's also kind of their like Giles a little bit
Mhm.
if you're a Buffy fan. Yeah, and I think we have him singing the Pina Colada song.
Yes. Yes.
In an opening scene. So he's like a guitar guy. He loves
Yeah.
and so yeah, I think I don't know if that was Bowen's call to make him tuning that guitar in that moment,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean I'll assume that all good art decisions were Bowen's.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think there's some just really fun little mundane details to show that like this is just suburbia. They're in suburbia. They're not in
Yes.
some heightened version of the world.
Hmm.
They're just in suburbia, and that's
Yeah.
where the demons are. So yeah, there's I hope there's some fun little details like that. I think at some point you see inside somebody's fridge, and it's just full of like
Hmm.
normal ass fridge
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah, I like all those little like real life mundane details. I think they make the horror stuff more fun.
Oh, yes. And then, um, I'm sorry because I'm also going to talk about. There's a couple. I love the other couple. The other scene. and it's Cortland. Now this is early on in the story where Cortland confronts the demon NYX that took over one of his roommates, possessed one of his roommates, and that demon is like floating above the pool. And I love it how now listeners, I know you guys can't see me what I'm doing, but he's pointing to the demon, and I forgot what he says, but I love that scene because it just reminded me of the original Ghostbusters scene when Ray is facing Gozer the Gozerian.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if I don't think I was explicitly thinking of that scene when I wrote it, and I don't know if Bowen was like looking at that movie at all for
yeah.
inspiration. But yeah, it is kind of comparable. It is just kind of a normal dude who has to face down an all-powerful ancient demon. So yeah, we definitely have a little Ghostbusters in this thing for sure.
Now also too, um, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Um, do you love the movie A Christmas Story?
Oh, I am like kind of neutral on A Christmas Story.
Okay.
I'll give you my history with the movie.
Okay.
I never saw it growing up. It's just one
Mm-hmm.
of those weird blind spots. And I know everybody's seen A Christmas
Mm-hmm.
Story.
Yeah.
Like it just played constantly on TV during Christmas, and for
Yes.
whatever reason, I just missed it. And so I saw it like as an adult. I think I saw it in my 30s for the first
Mm-hmm.
time. And when I saw it, I was like, "Yeah, this is all right." And it's one of those
Yeah.
things where it's like a movie hits you as a kid and it just stays in your brain forever. And this
Mm-hmm.
one just kind of didn't hit me as a kid. And when I watched it, I'm like, yeah, that was fun. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Yeah.
a cool Christmas movie. Um, so yeah, I think the thing you're talking about is that
Yes.
there is the lamp from A Christmas
Yes.
Story, the like sexy leg lamp that the main character's dad gets. So that's in Pastor Doug's rec room. And I will take some credit for I think that is in the script, me saying put the lamp from the Christmas Story in there. Because I don't know, I just thought like in that movie, the leg suggests cheesy suburbia, right? It's
Yes.
just like something that a cheeseball dad thinks is funny.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I just kind of wanted him to be that kind of dad who would like think that lamp is funny. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, hopefully that's a fun little like pop culture thing that tells you a little bit about his character.
Because I love it. It was great. It was really great. Um, Now also too, a little bit later in the book. Now I know you didn't see this in the question because I finished reading the whole book last night. I love that you mentioned. I forgot who mentions this, but also Parkway Restaurant. Oh, it was I think when Kay was talking to, was it her, someone she had a crush on, and I
Yeah.
think um they were talking about, oh yeah, we can go to also Parkway Restaurant. They got great spring rolls.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask, is that your reference to one of your favorite restaurants, P.F. Chang's restaurant that you go to?
Oh no, I do love P.F. Chang's, but no, I'll talk about the thing about so Oso Parkway is a street near where I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this book is set in Orange County, California. That's where
Mm-hmm.
I grew up, and so yeah, there's some little details in there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just needed a street name for there, so I just picked Oso Parkway
Mm-hmm.
because I remembered it growing up. It's not really in there for any reason other than just like I needed a name of a street and didn't want to
Yeah.
call it Main Street. And so I have okay, so this was the thinking behind making it spring rolls. So the like spookier, artier kids I knew growing up were into like sushi and like Asian food like before other people.
Yes.
The white ones anyways. So it was like I think it was like a little bit of a mark of we're a little bit sophisticated. And I think
Yes.
like that stuff is now more mainstream and
Yes.
it's
Mm-hmm.
something that like is in more towns and more
Yeah.
people have it regularly. But I think in the 90s at least, in Orange County at least, I think it was a little seen as a little more exotic and like
Yes.
something that only like artsy people did, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like go for sushi or go for Asian food. So
Yeah.
I think I just thought that it's kind of a dream scene a little bit, or it's the demon telling her what she wants to hear. So I was
Mm,
like,
yes.
what does Kay want to eat? What is Kay? I'm like, oh, she's a little artsier. She's a little more sophisticated. So I
Mm-hmm.
think probably she would want to go get like sushi or spring rolls or something like that. So that was the thinking behind that, of just like what is, in a dream where you're hearing exactly what you want to hear. What is the demon telling this kid?
Yes.
So
yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to ask you the next. Do you love X-Men comics?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Big X-Men kid. Yeah, I was a 90s kid, and those were the comics. I mean, yeah, obviously a lot of great comics from the 90s, but oh man, the X-Men were it. Yeah, I love X-Men and still do.
Because I love it. I love the nod that you give to the X-Men, because when Kate is blindfolded and taken to, the secret location, and she, the blindfold comes off and she goes, "This is someone's recreation room," or "This is the recreation room. What is this?" Because they take her to their quote unquote danger room.
Right.
And I love it when, they go, "Okay, this is where we do our trainings," and and don't forget, we have our bumper pool table too. I love playing on the F, or Meg says that. And I love it where, this is where we do our training, and I can't remember, but correct me if I'm wrong, but like, it's either they push a button or hit a lever and the paintings go up and all the sacred knives and swords are, hanging on the walls and stuff. And I love it when Cortland allows himself to be possessed by a weaker demon. And so that's where they learn how to train and fight. And the only thing I love that scene, because the only thing I kept thinking about was, why didn't the X-Men do this? Why didn't the X-Men go, "Okay, Colossus, you be Magneto, or Professor Xavier is going to give you Magneto powers, so we have to fight you."
Because that would have been great. I know. Yeah, I think these characters are kind of like working with what they have, and you're absolutely right. That little scene is kind of meant to remind you of the Danger Room, and they're supposed to have a like kind of lamer suburban version of the Danger Room that also has their bumper pool table and beanbag chairs in it. So yeah, no, I know, and I think they're just kind of working with what they have. So the fact that they have to like fight each other and put demons into each other to train. Yeah, I was just kind of like thinking about these characters as kind of scrappier and kind of having to like fight for resources a little bit. So yeah, hence the fact that they don't have a laboratory with monsters in jars, and they don't have hologram sentinels and stuff like that. They just kind of have the stuff that's around, and they have a little demon in a jar and they can put it in somebody. So yeah, that was kind of the thinking, and you're absolutely right. That was supposed to be kind of a low rent Danger Room that they're in.
But like I said, I love it. It was great. I loved it. Let's see. I'm slowly wrapping this up. At the end of this book, you give special thank you to your mother and Steph for being the best family members. I'm going to ask, would you like to expand
No, sure.
on that?
That's my mom and my sister. My mom is mom, and Steph is my sister. And yeah, I love my family. They're great. And yeah, definitely like I put the same thing in Bubble, and yeah, I don't know. I just like I'm really lucky that they support me in this stuff, because I think it's like like I don't have any professional creative people in my family, and I think that it's probably a little nerve-wracking when your kid says, "I'm going to try and be a professional creative person," because it's tough in many ways, and it's a long shot in many ways. So yeah, but I always felt so supported by my mom and my sister. They were always such great cheerleaders, and they've been such wonderful folks. I was very, very lucky to grow up with that. I know not everyone is, and I know some people face a lot of adversity when they try and be creative, and they face a lot of adversity when they try and chase their dreams, but I didn't. I was very lucky, and I just want to just make sure to make a little space to thank them when I'm doing stuff like this.
Jordan, thank you very much for sharing that. Thank you very much.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Let's see. 3 more questions. A fun question. Have you and your family been to Hawaii?
Yeah, so let's see. We came to Hawaii on a family trip when I was like maybe 6 or 7. I'll admit I don't really remember that trip.
No.
But one of my early entertainment jobs was working for a TV network that's not around anymore called Fuel TV, and they covered like skateboarding, snowboarding, and
Yeah.
surfing. So we would go to Hawaii every year to like film surfing contests, and it was such a treat. So yeah, we spent a lot of time on the Big Island, and yeah, we'd run a little house and make
Nice.
these dorky cable TV segments that nobody watched, and
Hmm.
it was really fun. I remember that job fondly, and getting to go to Hawaii was such a treat. It's so beautiful.
Oh, that's nice. Um, so listeners, like I said, when this episode airs, because I know Jordan, you're gonna, you'll be already at San Diego. You would have already been at San Diego Comic-Con.
Yes.
I'm gonna ask, what is your next store or convention appearance like in late August or for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I actually have plans to go to a few different Comic Cons. The one I know off the dome is Rose City Comic Con in
Yes.
Portland, and that is, I believe, the last weekend of September. So yeah, if you're out there and you're near Portland, check me out at the old Rose City Comic Con.
Hmm.
And yeah, I'll be going to a bunch of them throughout the year. Definitely a few in the fall. So
Hmm.
follow me on the social media, jordanmorris.net. You can find all my social media where I'll be posting about the cons. And of course, you can find some links to get yourself a copy of Youth Group available now.
Any closing words to our listeners?
No, oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. This was such a fun chat. Thank you so much for checking out the book and reading it so closely. I appreciate that. And yeah, if you've liked this chat and the book sounds good to you, please check it out. I'm sure if you're listening to the store, you have a local comic book shop that you
Hmm.
love. So head down there. That's the best place to get it. And yeah, if they don't have it on the shelf, they'll order it up for you. Youth Group, it's out there. And I hope people read it and like it.
Jordan, mahalo. Thank you in Hawaiian. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to interview you. I wish you all the success with Youth Group.
Oh, thank you so much, man. This is a great chat.
Thank you. And I also want to thank Hannah Superfan Promotions, for setting up this interview and for providing me with an advanced reading copy. Again, Hannah, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes. Thank you very much. Now, if you are a new comic book reader or a lifelong comic book reader, please check out Youth Group. I love it because, you know, on so many there's so many levels to this story. It's a coming of age story. It's about, you know, uh, a person just trying to find their path in life, and how to work with others that have different beliefs, but find some common ground or some common problem they try to fight and solve. And sometimes, through all of that, they find a lifelong friend. That's all. I'm going to leave it at that. And it's great. And as I keep mentioning this, it's all wrapped up in a very fun action adventure story. Like I said, I love this book. Again, I love Jordan. I'm gonna keep saying this. I love the dialogue.
Ah, thanks,
You
man.
know, Bowen's art is amazing. It's
Sure
great.
is. It
You
sure
know,
is.
it's really fun. Um, I want to thank Drew, the co-host of Comics for Fun and Profit, for putting this episode together. Drew, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes. And if you are a new listener, please check out new episodes of Comics for Fun and Profit that comes out every Saturday. And I want to thank you, the listeners. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys. Aloha.
All right.
Our LCS is Cowabunga Comics, Lake Country, Wisconsin's best pop culture destination for new comics, back issues, gaming, retro video games, vinyl, and figures. Give them a call, 262-569-9999. Check them out online at cowabungacomics.com or follow them on Twitter at Incredicow. They are our LCS, and we utilize their deep discount mail order service to bring Oconomowoc, Wisconsin closer to us. They'll take care of you. Tell them Drew and Kyle sent you. Say hi to Eric and James from us. If you need an LCS, you can't go wrong with Cowabunga Comics.